So, Philippians. And we're up to chapter 4. Chapter 4. Let me see. We're going to read from verses 1 to verse 7, inclusively 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I start with verse 1, are we okay going this way around? Yeah.
No, because it's got big words.
Oh yes. Oh, you get the.
You can say the big word.
Yeah, you get the difficult one, don't you? Okay. Well, why don't you start, Pat, with verse 1,
right.
and we'll give Matthew the tricky one.
This will be funny because I don't know. I'll try.
Therefore, my brethren, dearly beloved and longed for, my joy and crown, so stand fast in the Lord, my dearly beloved.
I beseech Euodias and beseech Syntyche that they may be of the same mind in the Lord.
And I entreat thee also, true yokefellow, help those women which laboured with me in the gospel, with Clement also, and with other my fellow labourers, whose names are in the book of life.
Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice.
Let your gentleness be known to everyone, the Lord is near.
Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving let your requests be made known unto God.
And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Okay, so just want to focus initially on that first word there in verse 1. Therefore, I won't bore you by going into again what we said. It's a connecting word. It's going to connect the chapter before it. So all the things we've been looking at in chapter 3, this is the word that's saying, okay, what's going to follow is a sort of summing up and a conclusion of all that's gone before. So just to pick on a few of the verses that we looked at, refresh our memory. So we're considering what we'd read, marking those that are our examples, verse 17 of chapter 3, knowing the fellowship of his suffering, verse 10, walking by the same rule, having the same mind that we looked at last week, verse 16, forgetting those things which are behind, reaching out to those things which are ahead or which are forward, verse 13. So that's what Paul's talking about, saying remember all these things, remember those difficult things like suffering for Christ, watching out for those people who are good examples to us, marking them and taking that example. So he's saying, whilst we have all these difficulties that we understand come with the Christian life, therefore, and we're going to just hold that thought there, just pause if you can, therefore, and then he uses this wonderful phrase, my brethren, dearly beloved, my joy and crown, and then at the end of that verse 1 he says it again, my dearly beloved. And what does yours say, Rachel, for that phrase? I'm quite interested.
Verse
1.
Yeah, my beloved.
My beloved.
Yeah.
Doesn't say my dearly beloved. No. Okay. Right. So this is a phrase, and we're sort of pausing over the word therefore because I just want to come back to it in a minute. But this is a phrase. If you asked someone to do an impression of a kind of high church vicar or someone like that, they might start off by saying, dearly beloved, and it's a shame because it's a phrase that people trot out as a kind of laugh at, really, but it's such a kind of tender phrase that he's saying you are dear to me, you're valuable to me, and beloved. There's a kind of affection there that really I think comes out in these verses that we're going to look at here. There's a personal and Paul was an apostle of many different churches, of course, and in his capacity, he had this official capacity where he's going around the churches, plants churches, and he goes back round again and checks that everything's all right. But there's a real personal kind of touch in these verses that follow. So I just wanted to pick up on that, and the fact that it repeats it, dearly beloved, dearly beloved. You know, a real kind of affection there. But yes, he's summing up some of the difficulties, some of the things that are their responsibilities and duties that we've seen in chapter 3. And then he uses this phrase, as you come sort of part way down through verse 1, he says, so stand fast in the Lord. So this is the summing up of chapter 3 and all that's gone before. Therefore, he's saying, therefore, stand fast in the Lord. Not just stand fast by yourself, grit your teeth and plant your feet, but he's saying stand fast in the Lord. You know, in the strength that the Lord supplies. And just kind of interesting to flesh that out a little bit. And by the way, you know, as I've said before, come in with comments and so on, or that you might have. Stand. The word "stand" there is the Greek word "stako," which means to persevere. So he's saying persevere. You know, whatever is coming your way, whatever difficulties you're facing, be of this mind that you are going to persevere, and the strength that you're going to do it with is the strength that the Lord will give you. So what it's talking about is submitting under the Lord's authority, whatever comes along, that you have joined yourself to the Lord, and by the way to his people in fellowship with others. And so what it is what I would call unconditional commitment. And this is something that particularly young Christians, people becoming Christians, are just not really told about enough, I don't think. I think people are so keen for people to be saved and to come to church and so on, that they're just saying, you know, how can we get them to come? How can we get them to stay in fellowship and so on? And we don't have this idea of counting the cost, telling people that they must count the cost when they become a Christian, and saying, look, you know, you must stand fast, you must make an unconditional commitment to Jesus Christ no matter what. It's like a marriage, isn't it? You know, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, and all the rest of it. You know, whatever may happen, that your commitment is to Jesus Christ. And so you're not that you're wishing something bad to happen or difficulties to come. Just like in a marriage, you're not wishing that to happen, but you're saying, nevertheless, whatever happens, I will stand fast. I will persevere through it, you know. And what I think is interesting is that actually Paul elsewhere, he sort of fleshes that out a little bit more. If you turn to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 15 it is, and this is again is the same Greek word. There's a number of Greek words for stand, but this is the same word, that stako word. It says, therefore, brethren, stand fast and hold the traditions which ye have been taught, whether by word or our epistle.
Yeah.
So he's saying, look, stand fast in the Lord, but also stand fast in these traditions. Now, traditions, he doesn't mean the traditions of your denomination.
Yes.
You know, he's talking about the apostolic traditions, the things that the apostles established, you know, breaking of bread and meeting together in prayer and all these other things. He's saying, stand fast in those traditions, and whatever you have been taught, whether by word, so that's whether, you know, what the apostles actually taught by word, what they preached, what they said, or even by this epistle, because of course he's talking to the Thessalonians, and so he's saying, yeah, even my epistle that I'm writing to you now. So I don't think he's saying specifically the book of Thessalonians, no others. You know. But I thought it was interesting, he's saying stand fast in the Lord, and in all this teaching here, you know, don't depart from it, but use it and persevere in it, you know, to establish what it's saying in your life.